Hi guys, and welcome to Steelers Fan TV. So today we've got kind of a sort of more spaced out video, sort of less rushed, because at the end of the day I'm on half term from school, from sixth form, and this video is actually going to be quite a longer one, so we'll talk about the players in the Steelers' current side that I would keep and that I would quit after the end of the season. So people that I would keep and people that I get rid of, and the reasons for that. So we'll start in net. Jackson Whistle. So I'd keep Whistle personally because I think for the second half of this season, Whistle has been tremendous really. Ever since Matt Climby's gone, he's really stepped up his game. I mean, when Matt Climby was here, I didn't really reckon much to Jackson Whistle. I thought that he was a bit poor, especially at the start of the season. I thought he was too shaky, and I was really glad when we brought in Matt Climby in the end because I thought it might add something. It turned out not to be the case, and Whistle has completely stepped up his game ever since. I do think it's because he recognised that, the coach might think that I'm not good enough, so I'm going to step up my game to show the coach that I am good enough. Brad Day. So, Brad Day is a bit of a sore point really for me. I personally don't think that Brad Day's suit is the Steelers, because I don't think he gets any ice time, and if he got ice time, I think he'd improve as a keeper. And if he improved as a keeper, then that'd mean he could maybe in the future break back into the Steelers side. But I think for him to progress as a player, I don't think that sat on the bench every Saturday or Sunday is great for him. And I do think that someone like Carson Schuback could be more of a better bet really for an IHL backup keeper, because he's similar to the likes of Murdy and stuff like that for the Devils, and he's had the experience as well. He's played quite a lot of the IHL games, whereas Brad hasn't really, and he's always been brought in if the first keeper's got injured. We'll start in defence. So, in no particular order really, I'm going to go Aaron Johnson. Now, Aaron Johnson has been quite good in points this season, but on the whole, I don't think he'd be coming back for me. If it was me making the decision in the summer, then I don't think that Aaron Johnson had come back, because I just think he's a little bit he seems a bit lazy, sluggish, like getting around the ice. I never really see much of him in a game. He does get points, I'll give him that, but at the end of the day, he hasn't been the player that people had expected him to be when he first signed for the Steelers in the off season. So it's kind of frustrated quite a lot of people. And similar player, Mark Matheson. Now, Mark Matheson was excellent last season. Literally scored so many points and was sort of a highlight player really throughout the season. Scored quite a few goals, especially that were just really high skilled goals. But this season he hasn't impressed me just as much, and I don't know if it's his his assistant managerial role, whether it's that sort of got to him, sort of he's more important than most people, and I don't know, his performances seem to have dipped this season. So, him and Aaron Johnson, I don't think I'd see back at the Steelers next season, but it's up for debate, really. It's up for debate. Ben O'Connor's you got to keep him really. Yes, he hasn't scored as many goals as he might have in the past, but at the end of the day, he's still a British defender and probably one of the best in the league. So you've just got to hand that to him. Likewise, Davy Phillips. When we're on the topic of British defencemen, Davy Phillips is always really sort of a high-profile key player in the Steelers. Is willing to drop the gloves, willing to do all this. Sadly, obviously, he's been injured for most of this season, so we haven't really seen how much of an effect he does have on the game, really. And obviously now he's coming back, he's sort of starting to get into the side more, sort of starting to play more regular. And yes, he hasn't dropped the gloves ever since he's come back, but still, he has the potential to drop the gloves, and he has the potential to be sort of a competent defender. Josh McFadden, player who's come in from a Unisports team in the summer. Everyone was a bit sceptical about McFadden joining when he did, and he hasn't really impressed me that much. I mean, he scored that tremendous goal against Nottingham on the day after Boxing Day, 27th, and apart from that, I don't really think he's scored many goals really, and he's not impressed many people, and I can't see how if he came back he'd improve the side. He'd just keep it the same. Now, yes, he's got good defensive abilities, but he often gets caught out a lot. Like in the centre of the ice, he often just gets caught out a lot with breakaways and stuff like that. and then you're leaving the keeper wide open, and you're just thinking like, could this be prevented? And I think Josh McFadden would go for me if I was to make the decision. Ryan Martinelli. Now this one's gonna shock many people. Now Ryan Martinelli, I would keep in the off season, simply because he's a big player, and if you kept him and played him on the third line defence the season after, you could build a defence around that sort of player. Now, although many people have been saying like, yeah, he's not good enough for this side, in truth, right, he needs good players around him to perform to the top level. Now, as you saw with Belfast last season, he was a cup winner, he played excellent, he was all really physical, but it seems like he doesn't have the players around him to sort of bring his level up to what it should be. So that's the reason that I think Martinelli should stay. I want to give him one more season just to see if he can prove himself, because he proved himself with Belfast, but he's never really proved himself with the Steelers. So, young lad, Jordan Griffin, defender. I'd keep him really, simply because just to give him a bit of experience. But I think he'd be better off with like an NIHL side on a 2-way loan contract. I think he is at the minute. I'm not quite sure on that, but I know he was at some stage. And shout out to Josh really yesterday for what he did at the Steelers Learn to Skate in wheeling the wheelchair around the ice. I thought that was a really nice touch, especially like just to take 5 minutes out of his time to do that and to make someone's day, to make a family's day. It's great. So we'll move on to forwards. Jordan Owens. So Owens is quite a weird one for me. Not like a guy, but like just a weird, I don't know. He affects games, I'll give him that. He does affect games, but he does it in his really weird way. I don't know how to describe it, but it's just weird like how he does it, and he affects the game really well. Like, every time there's a shot, he'll follow it in and he'll start something like with the other team. He'll sort of get the fans going really. And like we saw on Saturday against Nottingham, he gets 2 goals just out of absolutely nowhere, and you're thinking, he's actually a decent player, if he gets going, And we haven't seen it for the most part this season, but recently Owens has really picked up his game, and I don't know if many other people have noticed it. Like, I hope they have, because it'll just nullify my opinion if you want, but Owens just seems sort of to have stepped up his game, and he's sort of raised the expectations of the fans of him. So I'd like to see Owens back really next season, in the hope that he sort of really comes out of his shell and starts being sort of the player that we got promised in the summer. So Josh Pitt, no, I wouldn't see Josh Pitt back in the new season. Yes, he's scored goals, but he reminds me of Jesse Schultz. He's quite he's not up to the sort of standard that we expected of him. And yeah, it is hard coming into a side like us, especially at the start of the season where you've got the Ruperts who do nothing, and you've got to play around them. You know what I mean? It's quite difficult, but I think Pitt sort of has faded recently, and he takes a lot of sort of needless penalties and stuff like that. So I don't think I'd see Josh Pitt back in the new season. Robert Dowd, well, it's just obvious you've got to have him back. It's not a case of if or but. It's a case of get him back, please. So yeah, Robert Dowd I'd definitely keep. Eric Neely. Now, personally, I wouldn't keep Eric Neely, because I don't think he's really affected much since coming back from the MK Lightning. I don't know why he left in the first place, but at the end of the day, he's come back and he hasn't really done as much as I expected him to. He was better last season under Paul Thompson with the players around him that he had than he is this season. Tom Zanuski. Now, Zanuski, okay, yeah, he did come in to a side that are quite troubled, not as much going for us as we had in the previous season. And he's come from Zagreb, that folded. And I wouldn't keep Tom Zanuski. I understand that people who were saying like, oh, but he's only been here for this long. Yeah, for me that doesn't make a difference. I just don't think he's affected the game as much as we expected, really, and it's a shame. So I wouldn't see him back. And obviously on the topic of Zagreb, you've got John Armstrong. I can't see why we got rid of John Armstrong in the first place, because at the end of the day, he's affected the side for the last 2 years or so, and he did really well when he was here, especially for the first 2 years. Getting to the playoffs, winning the playoff final, getting to the playoff final last year, and I don't understand why we got rid of so many players, because I fully expected this to happen. I know we all call it the new generation, but at the end of the day, it's always going to be hard to build a squad from scratch, which was effectively what it was. So, I just don't think that. I think, no, I'd keep John Armstrong. I'd keep him, just for the factor that he's probably one of his better players. But at the end of the day, and now I'm thinking Neely. I think I'd keep him. I don't know, because he's been injured, hasn't he? And I forgot that split second that he's been injured, so he couldn't really affect much. Oh, anyway, Tanner Eberle. I'd keep Eberle for like the third, fourth line. Yeah, I think he's done ridiculously well, really. To say the size of him, the hits he puts in, the physicality that he uses, I think he's been brilliant, really. He dropped the gloves the other week. Not afraid to do that. At the end of the day, he's only a small guy, but he really is sort of pulling his weight and showing other players around him sort of what you can do if you put that effort in. And I think he's really good. I'd definitely keep Eberle. Third line, fourth line. Definitely. DeLuca. DeLuca, for me, if we sign him from the start of the season and give him the full season, I think we could see probably one of the best players in recent times. So if we give him a really big opportunity with good players around him, we've got to do some rebuilding in the off-season. A couple of good players around DeLuca, and I think he'll absolutely shine. Like, seriously, I think he'll be one of the better ones in the league. And people can say all they want, like, oh, but you're just saying that. No, I do think that DeLuca can really properly show us what he's got him to offer. And hopefully we can sort of push on with players like that. Jonathan Phillips. Now, Phillips, for me, has been a good captain, and I'd personally see him back, just maybe for a couple more seasons as a captain. But I don't know how much he's got left in him, and people have been saying, like, I don't know how much he's got left in him. What's he going to do next? Is he going to move to a lower league club? Could follow in footsteps like Jason Hewitt or something like that. Move to the Hull Pirates. But I can't see it happening. I think he'll stay with the Steelers for a couple more seasons, see how that goes, and then probably leave. Jonas Westlund. Now, Westlund adds quite a lot to the team. Although you don't see it like on the ice a lot, he adds so much to the team. And that may be just in the dressing room and stuff like that. Apparently he's really good in the dressing room. And to lift the sort of spirits of the team, really, I think they can, they understand that it's been a bad season. And they just want to get it out of the way, really, and I understand that. So I think players like Westlund really do sort of boost people's sort of overall mood, really, and I think he'd be excellent to keep in the dressing room. So fourth line player, good to have. What's his name? Come on, we can do this. McGrath, Evan McGrath or McGrath, right? I wouldn't keep him, personally, because he's quite a high line forward that hasn't really done much. And yes, he's scored the odd goal, but at the end of the day, I think we've just sort of got to look for rebuilding. And does McGrath really fit into the side? Possibly not. There is possibly like a place for him, but at the end of the day, I can't really see going forward how he'd affect it that much. And it's Rich coming from the arm, only effectively a rep hockey player. And at the end of the day, I don't really have much of an opinion on players, but I don't know, he hasn't really affected the side that much, so who knows, really. And finally, I hope I haven't missed anyone out, Kieran Brown. Now, Kieran Brown has been good, but we've got to keep hold of him, because we don't want him sort of slipping, sort of through his fingers and him going to another side. This season we probably won't bring next season we probably won't bring another apprentice in. So to keep our apprentices and to keep them going would probably be a good idea. And Kieran Brown, I think, should potentially get a professional contract after the end of this season, or he might even have one. You know, he was an apprentice, and I don't think we'll do the apprenticeship scheme next year. So it'll be interesting to see what happens really with the youngsters. I'd like to keep them for future to sort of build on their characters and stuff like that. But do they fit into the current system? Probably not. We're obviously playing for experience at the minute. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Leave a like if you have, and I'll see you in the look ahead this Friday coming. See you later.